Hey gang, Dave Spalding from Handgun Combatives. I don't know what you've been doing with your time off during the Chinese virus, but I have been spending some time building some Glocks from parts that I happen to have on hand. Recently I posted this one on my business Facebook page, and there was quite a bit of interest into how the gun would turn out. So what I thought I'd do is I'd do a brief video telling you a little bit about the gun, why I did what I did, and then we'll shoot it a little bit. First of all, as you can see, it's unloaded. You don't have to worry about that. But basically what I did is I took a Caspian slide that I had on hand, which was already cut for a J-point sight, which is the same footprint as the Shield sight out of Great Britain. And in this case, I used the RMSW, which is Shield's new metal sight that is also waterproof. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. And then I mounted it onto the updated Lonewolf Timberwolf frame, excuse me. If you'll just come in a little bit there. This has been updated in the fact that we have a little more sandpapery type of texture on the grip. It's been undercut more here behind the trigger guard so you can get your hand up into the tang a little bit better. Of course, it's got a rounded trigger guard, and it's got interchangeable back straps. You can get one that's straight, pretty much front and back strap parallel like a 1911, or you can put a curve on it. It comes with a magazine well, which I'm kind of ambivalent about, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. For trigger, I used Lonewolf's universal trigger. Now, what makes it universal? It allows me to set the amount of pre-travel and over-travel that is desirable for me. I'm also using a Lonewolf suppressor length barrel. No reason other than the fact I happen to have it. And then I married the rear notch on the Shield sight with a front D4 sight from Ameriglo. Again, I just happen to have it on hand. On the other side, I'm using a Vickers slide lock lever or slide release, or however you want to call it, that I have modified by cutting the back half off. Why did I do that? So my thumb wouldn't sit on it. So that way I would allow it to lock it open. Also, I kind of like this setup, whereas I can hit it with this thumb, I can hit it with this thumb, I could tap it off on the bottom of my holster if I was one-handed, or I can ignore it completely. But it allows me a number of options, and I like options. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. First of all, let's start with the universal trigger. Doug, if you can come in a little bit, you can see that I've got the universal trigger set for very minimal pre-travel. Basically, the tip of the trigger is in line with the pivot pin. So what I have now, as you can see, the safety works, but I have very little pressure in order to set that gun off, and then you'll get to see the reset. It's about as close to a 1911 trigger as you can put in a Glock. Now, if you're starting to get all worked up and stuff about liability, just turn the video off right now, because as I continue, you're just going to hyperventilate. So if you're liability phobic and you don't want to change the Glock from stock, go someplace else. Anyway, that allows me to get an almost 1911 trigger. I have very small hands, very, very short fingers, and being able to get my finger right where I want it so I can depress it straight to the rear is of great importance to me. I don't want to be trying to reach way out here and have an improperly fitted trigger to grip tang length. So that universal trigger allows me to do that. And then as far as over travel, why not get rid of it? It doesn't do you any good. The shorter the trigger is, the less likely you're going to sympathetically try to use the whole hand to work that trigger, and that's a big problem. I don't know where the whole term slapping the trigger came from. Very seldom is your lack of accuracy with your pistol a single finger problem. It's usually a multitude of fingers doing things you don't want it to do. So you want to have a trigger you can control. I mounted that, or I shouldn't say I mounted it, but I combined it with a Ghost Pro 3.3 connector. Now, I no longer am a brand ambassador for Ghost, but that doesn't mean that I don't like their products. They make great products, and he makes super outstanding connectors. So I mounted that to it, and then I used a Wolf 6-pound striker spring and a 6-pound trigger spring, which gives me a trigger that's about 4.5 to 5 pounds, which in my opinion is right where you want a good fighting gun trigger. Look folks, you're never going to get enough trigger weight in your pistol to overcome an involuntary muscle contraction or a contraction of the hand. You'd need a 25-pound trigger. So get that out of your mind. It's not going to do that. Okay, the Lonewolf frame, as I said earlier, you've got this kind of a sandpaper, pebbly grain. I like the flat back strap so it's parallel to the front, the cutaway. As far as the mag funnel, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I mean, look at the size of the hole and look at the taper on the Glock magazine. You got plenty of room to get that in there. Some people have told me, and I'm okay with this, that they kind of like having this base right here because it keeps their hand up into the grip tang and it keeps the magazine from biting right here. You know what? Okay, that's valid. But you know what? On a carry gun, I'm not sure I want a big protrusion at the bottom of the grip when I'm trying to conceal it. So I will probably take this off. But if you like it, that is fine. The Caspian slide that I used is no longer made, but I'm going to tell you what, I've got several Lonewolf slides that are equal in quality to this. The reason I used the Caspian is I happen to have it on hand and it was already cut for the J-point, which fits perfectly with this Shield RMSW. Come on in just a little closer. What I like about the Shield is it is made from aircraft aluminum. So this is made from the same material as your tactical flashlight. Now it's got a polymer window in it, and some people say, oh, I want glass, and you can get glass. The folks at Shield told me that in their estimation, the polymer was more durable as far as rough treatment, so I went with their recommendation. As you can see, there's holes cut away from it to kind of lighten it, and you've got these serrations on the side so you can grab a hold of it, just like the cocking serrations on the rear of your slide, so we can grab a hold of it. Thing I really like about the Shield though is you can see there's a notch right here and it's got some walls that come up, which allows you to use this as the rear fixed sight in alignment with a front sight. So basically I don't have to like dovetail an extra sight in here. That will work for it. Now, one of the criticisms of the Shield sight system is that in order to set the thing, to zero it, you've got to have this Allen screw and this weird little dial on it, and I realize that can be clunky. But think about the other side of that. That system allows you to keep these adjustment screws very, very small. So now the unit is much smaller and more compact. And you know what? On EDC guns, that compactness I think is important. Now, well, is this durable enough for duty use? You know what, I don't know. I'm not going to punch it against a barricade, and I'm not going to drop it down on concrete to find out. What I would tell you though is instead of punching against a barricade, I would hook it against a barricade and work it. And I bet if it fell and it fell on the side, it probably would be fine. So I won't say it's something you want for law enforcement duty use, but for off-duty use or for the civilian everyday carry, I think this sight is every bit as durable. Now, the interesting thing about this particular sight, and you know what, I should go out and buy a lottery ticket, because I mounted this on the gun, went to the range, and it was zeroed. I didn't have to do a thing to it, which was simply outstanding. The suppressor length barrel, again, is something that I did. I will probably buy a standard length barrel because I don't need the protrusion. I'm not going to be using suppressors or anything like that. But this gun has turned out to be just exceptionally good. The trigger is smooth, the reset is short, I can shoot it very, very fast. It just works terrific. Oh, and last but not least, as you can see, it fits right in my standard Glock 19 holsters. So to kind of wrap this video up, everybody wants to see us shoot it. We're going to go ahead and shoot it on this challenge target silhouette. I've been using these a little bit. I like this setup because it's basically the same scoring zone that I use with my paper or cardboard targets in my classes. As you can see, we've got a thoracic cavity and a head. So I kind of like that. You either hit a vital area or you don't. So let's walk back and do just a little bit of shooting. Let's get back here. Okay, that's the 10 yards. It's a little bit further forward, so it's probably 8.5, 9 yards. Let's just take a look at it. Whoop. Missed one. You know, there's something that whole correlation of the red dot should be on the target before you press the trigger, because if it is, you tend to hit. But this gun right here has turned out to be a very, very sweet setup, and don't be a bit surprised if you see this in some of my upcoming classes. Lonewolf distributors, shield sights, Ghost, some really good components in this gun. Dave Spalding, Handgun Combatives, thanks for checking in.